Good morning, friends. Myself, Dr. Kaushik Lotia, welcome you all to today's session on National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program. પહેલા આપણે સમજીએ વેક્ટર એટલે શું. તમને ખ્યાલ છે વેક્ટર એટલે શું? ચાલો. Vector means any organism which does not cause the disease itself but is capable of transmitting the disease from one host to another. This is called vector. So with this understanding, we begin with our today's session on National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program. Since, since the independence, several programs are launched independently for vector control such as malaria, filaria, Japanese encephalitis. But since the control, surveillance mechanisms of all these programs are very similar, it was decided to merge all these programs into one program. And so, in 2003-2004, a new program emerged from convergence of malaria control program, filaria program, Kala Azar, Japanese encephalitis, and dengue. This program is called National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program, Nvbdcp. There was an epidemic of chikungunya in Delhi region in 2006, after which in 2007 chikungunya was also included under Nvbdcp. Several health programs run by the state and government of India were all brought under one broad mission which we understand as National Health Mission, which was launched in 2013. NVBDCP also runs under the umbrella of NHM, National Health Mission. The diseases included under National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program are malaria, filaria, dengue, Kala Azar, Japanese encephalitis, and chikungunya. Now we know that all these diseases except one are transmitted by mosquito. Only Kala Azar is transmitted by sandfly. Now three of these diseases are parasite borne and other three are virus caused. Malaria, filaria, and Kala Azar are caused due to parasite, while dengue, Japanese encephalitis, and chikungunya are caused by virus. So, friends, let us understand the anatomy and physiology of the program, means various structures and their functions. So, at the national level, we have the Directorate of National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program, which serves as the nodal office for all the technical aspects of the program. The Directorate at the national level essentially functions for the formation of various guidelines in relation to the drug policy, the use of insecticides, and various technical aspects in relation to program. In addition, it also distributes the funds to the various states following the principle of equitable distribution, means as per the needs of different states. At the state level, we have the State Vector-Borne Disease Control Component or department under the Directorate of Health Services. The state level functions for modification of guidelines and to suit the local needs in their respective states. They also function to further divide the funds from central level to district level. At the district level, we have the District Malaria Office, overall in charge of implementation of all the Nvbdcp aspects in their district. The District Malaria Office functions under the Chief District Health Officer of the district and CDMO of the district hospital. At the community level, particularly in endemic areas, we have community volunteers such as ASHA and other health volunteers who deliver NVBDCP program components to the household level. This slide shows the summarized view of the entire program. We will be describing all the six diseases individually. However, this is the overall outline in which the control aspects of all the six diseases will be discussed. So, first point is disease management. For the control of any program, you will see that this is very similar to the current ongoing corona epidemic. The management strategies, control strategies are very similar. You will see that in the entire program that I will be discussing. And for any communicable disease, these same principles apply. Only thing is the context or the situation or the description will be different. Here we'll be discussing more in terms of vector control. So here, for the control of any disease, the most important aspect is early case detection. And then what to do after early case detection? Complete treatment. The next most important aspect is if we can't do complete treatment, then what? Go for referral services. Strengthening of referral services. And as a part of our preparation, we must always be prepared for any epidemic that occurs in the future, and we must rapidly uh, respond to it. So, epidemic preparedness and rapid response. Next part is integrated vector management. Here it is divided into three parts: entomological surveillance, anti-larval measures, and anti-adult measures. I will discuss all these things. And lastly, the third part, which is same in all the programs, that is supportive interventions. You can write these points in all the programs, but with different context. Behavior change communication, intersectoral partnership, convergence, public-private partnership, operational research, monitoring and evaluation. So now let us study the individual diseases under the National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program. So now let us study the components of malaria program under National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program. Since the independence, malaria has been a huge public health problem in India. If you remember, the life expectancy at independence was on an average only 30 to 35 years, and that was largely attributed to the deaths in millions happening due to malaria. So, in 1953, the government of India launched the National Malaria Control Program. Remember the word control. It was to control malaria which was uncontrollable at that time, leading to deaths in millions in India. The National Malaria Control Program was one of the biggest successful program in the history of India. And looking at the success of the program, government decided that we can not only control but eradicate this program. So now you need to understand what is eradication. And so being confident or rather overconfident, the government launched National Malaria Eradication Program with the aim to completely clear malaria from India. However, that did not happen, and the malaria cases once again became increasingly uncontrollable. This was largely attributed to urban areas, urbanization, and there was a different type of malaria in urban area. I will describe it later. And so, urban malaria scheme was launched in 1971. Then it was also uh, stated that all the areas of the country do not need equal focus. There are certain pockets where malaria is highly endemic and more cases, more fatalities are happening. Certain areas where there are low cases and no fatalities happening. And so there was a modified plan of operation for malaria control launched in 1997, sorry, 77. Then, consequently, thereafter, several other programs were added, such as Malaria Action Program in 95, Enhanced Malaria Control Project in 97, National Anti-Malaria Program in and the current program National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program in 2003, 2002, 2003. Then Intensified Malaria Control Project in 2005, Artesunate Combination Therapy, also known as ACT. It was launched in 2008. Then World Bank supported National Malaria Control Project in 2008. Then other minor components such as long-lasting insecticide-treated bed nets, they were introduced in the program in 2009. Then there was a new drug policy for malaria in 2010. Then introduction of bivalent rapid diagnostic test kits in 2012. New drug policy for malaria was launched in 2013, and currently we have the national framework for malaria elimination in India, which was launched in 2016 with aim to eliminate malaria by 2030. So now we have all the three: malaria control program, eradication program, and elimination program. And it is more important for you, friends, to understand the difference in control, elimination, and eradication. Dear friends, we know that the malaria situation in the country is not uniform. Certain states showing high prevalence of malaria, certain states showing low prevalence of malaria. So, under the modified plan of operation in 1977, it was decided to classify the areas based on annual parasite incidence into high priority areas and low priority areas. This reminds me of the current corona situation in the country where our country is divided into three zones based on certain factors. Here, under National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program, certain areas where more cases of malaria are happening have to be prioritized. To prioritize certain areas, to divert adequate funds towards certain areas, to divert input resources, and to equitably distribute the available resources, we need to classify the areas where we need to see that there is a rational distribution of resources. There is maximum output from the minimum input that we have. So in malaria, we have classified the areas based on annual parasite incidence as high priority areas with API more than 2 and low priority areas with API less than 2. API more than 2 means occurrence of 2 or more cases of malaria in a particular area in 1 year. So if more than 2 cases of malaria are happening in a particular area in 1 year, that is our high priority area. So now what is this area? So you can say area can be a state, can be a country, anything. But for our classification, the area we have taken it as a subcenter is the unit, a subcenter area for effective classification and effective channelization of resources. The unit is subcenter. Now first, what are the interventions done in areas with annual parasite incidence more than 2? So if API is more than 2, then all the houses in that subcenter area will be sprayed, will receive regular insecticidal spray or indoor residual sprays at 6 weeks intervals during the transmission season of malaria. So this means we have minimum 2 to 3 rounds of indoor residual sprays during transmission season, which is during monsoon season. Then entomological studies are done in high transmission areas. So we need to study regarding the vector, which mosquito causes the disease, which species of mosquitoes are involved in which particular area, whether that vector is susceptible or resistant to the spray DDT, malathion that we use to the insecticides. So we need to understand the resistance and the species of the mosquito. So entomological studies are to be done. Otherwise, it may happen that vector is resistant to DDT, and if we go on spraying with DDT, IRS will not be effective. Next is malaria surveillance. Both active and passive surveillance are done in API whether more than 2 or API less than 2. Regarding treatment of cases, complete radical treatment is given. There is no scope for presumptive treatment now. Previously, we used to have presumptive treatment that considering any fever as malaria, we used to give chloroquine. But now we have improved diagnostic facilities with rapid diagnostic test kits, and we don't want chloroquine resistance to increase in the community. And so we have given up presumptive treatment. Now we only go for complete radical treatment. Radical treatment means not only on we focus on the adult parasite but also on the sporozoites of the parasite. We want complete cure of the patient. Now, other aspects of the program are if API is more than 2 in any particular region, district, we will intensify our efforts in the rural areas of the district or other remote areas of the subcenter. The most important bottleneck or uh, priority part is the diagnosis of malaria. Preparation of slides by thick smear and thin smear and microscopic examination of the slide is the gold standard for diagnosis of malaria. However, it is not always possible and it is not available below PHC level. Even at PHC level, there is shortage of laboratory technicians. If API is more than 2, then we have decentralized laboratory services to PHC level, but reality is we are still lacking in human resource. Laboratory technicians are not available. And nothing to say about subcenters. Laboratory diagnosis or microscopy is not convenient, not feasible at subcenter level. So we have health workers collecting the slides and sending the slides to the PHCs. But this may take 2 to 3 days for the results to come. And so now we are gradually upgrading and focusing on our rapid diagnostic test kits. So RDKs, they are available. Previously, RDK was available only and only for falciparum malaria. Now we have bivalent rapid diagnostic test kit which can detect both falciparum and vivax malaria. So they facilitate rapid diagnosis of malaria in remote areas. However, slides are blood slides. Smear is still to be collected and sent to PHC laboratory for confirmation. Next is we also have drug distribution centers and fever treatment depot in rural areas. Now, this drug distribution centers and fever treatment depot, they are manned by voluntary workers. They are just as Anganwadi centers or the ASHA workers. They themselves act as a DDC or fever treatment depot. The only difference between DDC and FTD is drug distribution centers are any voluntary person taking up the responsibility for distribution of drugs, malaria drugs at community level, so that whenever there is a suspected case, drugs are available locally. While in fever treatment depot, the voluntary worker is trained for collection of slides. He will collect the slides and these slides he will hand over to health worker, male health worker, who will be returning the slides to the PC. So these are the key programmatic aspects in areas with annual parasite incidence more than 2. Now, if the annual parasite incidence is less than 2 case per 1000 population in a given subcenter area, then our strategy is different. We don't do regular insecticide spray. Insecticide spraying is done only focally, means if we if there is a case of malaria detected in any area, then only and only his house is sprayed with indole residual spray, DDT or BHC or malathion. There is no need of entomological studies in this area. Vector sensitivity is not needed. Active and passive malaria surveillance are being done in both these areas. If a case of malaria is detected, we give radical treatment. However, radical treatment alone is not sufficient. Now, since the malaria cases were very less in this area, what is additionally done in this area is epidemiological investigation of the case. That means epidemiological investigation means agent, environment, host. So, what is the agent? Which vector is involved in transmission of the case? How the case was transmitted? Whether it was local transmission or whether the person has traveled to another high risk area and brought the disease with himself. So we want to determine the causative factor, and so we ask for his travel history, contact history, etc. And this is called epidemiological investigation. Similarly, once the person is cured from the disease, his follow-up examination with blood smear preparation is done regularly every monthly for 12 months and ensured that all his slides are negative. Now, currently we have malaria elimination program. So those areas where API was less than 2, now there are also areas which have nearly eliminated malaria. Means API is less than 1. So under these areas, our strategy is still more strict in, in the manner that for any one positive case, 50 houses in the surroundings are surveyed. Slides of all the persons in 50 houses surrounding the person's positive case house are surveyed, their slides are taken, and space spray is done. Why space spray? Space spray means use of pyrethroids and do fogging. That is called space spray. Now, pyrethroids have rapid knockdown effect. This will kill any mosquito which has the parasite. So the vector for the disease will be killed by doing space spray operation in 50 houses surrounding the positive case. In addition, we also go for indoor residual. Now we'll be discussing about indoor residual sprays, IRS. So we use DDT as indoor residual spray. The others insecticide like malathion and pyrethroids are also used if the vector is resistant to DDT. The problem with indoor residual spray is that it has residual effects. Once indoor residual spray is done, entire wall must not be washed. IRS leads to staining, white stainings on the walls. Also, IRS is not effective on mud walls. In addition, there is a severe smell in the house after doing IRS. Community is to be advised not to wash the walls or replaster the walls after doing IRS. Community must be informed at least 1 week above before the beginning of IRS operation in a particular area so that the house members, family members are prepared and they accept the IRS. But these are the main loopholes or difficulties in IRS. In addition, IRS is very difficult in urban areas due to small size of the house, more number of family members, density of the people, density of houses in a given area. So IRS at present is primarily focused on rural areas of the country. Malaria surveillance under National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program. The aim of malaria surveillance is elimination of malaria. Why I am saying this is usually surveillance is done to measure the burden of a disease. Here our focus is on through surveillance we want to eliminate the disease. So malaria surveillance we do all the three types: active surveillance, passive surveillance, as well as sentinel surveillance. Now what is active surveillance? In active surveillance, the health worker goes to the house, to the community, and looks for any suspected cases of malaria and collects the sample, collects the slide. This is active surveillance. While in passive surveillance, a person with fever comes to the health center or hospital and his slides are collected and surveillance is done for examination of malaria. So passive surveillance is also done through private practitioners. So the person may go to private providers, private practitioners, and the private practitioner may also collect the slide and send them to the district health offices. Now we have various malarial indices based on this surveillance. The first is annual blood examination rate. So how do we know whether our malaria surveillance is actually occurring in the field or not? So this can be easily known by number of slides collected in the year, and this is what is annual blood examination rate. If ABER is more than 10%, that means 10 people, 10 slides for every 1000 people are examined in a year. So ABER, annual blood examination rate, is an index of operational efficiency of the program, whether the program is operating effectively or not. That can be known by annual blood examination rate. The other indices, the most important is annual parasite incidence. We have just described it is used for classifying the areas, prioritizing the areas. The other indices are also important in terms of judging high risk areas for malaria, severity of malaria. These are annual falciparum incidence, slide positivity rate, slide falciparum rate. These indices were discussed in the earlier malaria lectures.